Electric cars offer a pretty easy way to build performance into the equation because it's pretty easy to just turn up the juice and add a lot more power and torque. So if you're going for a performance EV, what do? There's more to the formula than just raw power. Welcome to Out Motorsports, the channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake and I'm here with the 2025 Hyundai Ioniq5 N. This is the high-performance version of Hyundai's highly successful Ioniq5 hatchback crossover thing. Talk about that in just a second. And it is more than just more power and torque. So let's get right into what makes this Ioniq5 N an N car, and then we'll get it on some great back roads as part of one of our Out Motorsports events and talk all about how it is to drive. So first things first, let's talk easy button. That's the power and torque. And these cars are all going to be dual motor, so one motor per axle. And the rear motor is going to have a limited slip differential as part of the drive unit. And normally this is all good for 601 horsepower and 545 pound-feet of torque, but Hyundai has a button similar to those on the gas-powered N cars that they are building and have built. And in this case, it's called NGB, Grin Boost. And that's good for another 40 horsepower and a little bit less than that torque. So 641 horsepower and 568 pound-feet. That is substantial. These are somewhat heavy. They come in just shy of 5,000 pounds, but even still, that's good for a 0 to 60 run of 3-point-something seconds, between 3 and 3.3, according to different tests that I have found and looked at. So we'll talk about that in a second here, but Hyundai did a lot more than just that with the Ioniq5 N. So otherwise, they wanted to stiffen the body, stiffen the structure, so there are a ton more welds going on. There's many more feet of structural adhesive on the unibody here. That's a really big deal. Adding structural rigidity is something that not a lot of people talk about, not a lot of people do, but it does make a difference. And Hyundai's claiming you can track this car. We're not going to track it this time, but they're claiming it's good for track use. So that is a big deal. Other thing they do for track use is they upsize the brakes. The front rotors in particular are huge. They are nearly 16 inches in diameter, which you're going to need if you're stopping all this mass, all this car from track speeds. I say all this car because it is indeed fairly large. This has a 118-inch wheelbase. That's longer than a lot of crossovers because this is vaguely crossover-ish. It doesn't have the ride height. It does have the all-wheel drive, but the styling here lends itself to looking like a hot hatch. I think a lot of people, myself included, hope that this is kind of Volkswagen GTI size, and it's not. These are big cars. It's the same, not really complaint that I have, but just the same observation I have about the regular Ioniq5 in that it is a longer, wider car than my brain wants to process with the styling. I think the styling's great. I think it's better with the N treatment here. You've got some different things going on with the fender flares and the different wheels and the other aero bits and the rear spoiler, and I think it all works. I love the little red chin strap that you get going on here in the middle of the grille. It all works really, really well. Speaking of these wheels, these are a special wheel for this car. They are a 21-inch wheel and they are forged, so Hyundai wanted to both add strength for the sake of track use and reduce unsprung mass. I know it's kind of silly to say that when you're talking about such a heavy car in the first place, but you know, every little bit counts, and I do admire the dedication, the commitment to the bit. Now, I mentioned track use, and Hyundai's done some other things for the sake of track use here with the Ioniq5 N, both with software and with hardware. So hardware first, the battery in this car is good for roughly 220, 225 miles of range based on your driving, according to Hyundai. Obviously, in track use, you're going to get nowhere near that, but they have a specific track drive mode that is meant to give you 20 minutes of hard driving, followed by 20 minutes of DC fast charging, back, forth, back, forth. Apparently it will do it. Obviously, we're not testing that today, but that is one of the ways they have tried to make this thing useful if you are a legit enthusiast and want to do some track days or some time trials or whatever with a car like this. Now, maximum DC fast charging happens up to 238 kilowatts of speed, so that's good for a 10 to 80% charge time of 25 minutes or so, and that's all proven to be about correct in the testing and driving that I have done. The other thing that Hyundai has done, which we can sample with this car, that seems super, super, super silly on the surface, but I think is going to be pretty good, is they've actually designed in not only fake engine sounds that get pumped, you know, through the speakers of the car, but they've given the car paddle shifters with a simulated 8-speed DCT. So this is an interesting thing. The way this normally works, obviously electric cars don't need transmissions. This has no transmission. There is physically no transmission in the car. But Hyundai says that if you're driving on track or ostensibly driving on back roads, pushing the car, you're paying attention to the road, and when you don't have any noise or any gears, your brain kind of loses track of how fast you're going. And the implication there is that it's really easy to overcook it, enter a corner way too hot, not have enough time to slow down, etc. You're not going to be driving at your best if you don't really have that frame of reference between the feeling and the sound. So they've got the sounds, and you can pick from 3 different sounds. We'll get to that when we're driving here. And then they've got these paddle shifters that normally would be used to change how much regen braking you want. But if you turn them on to the shifting mode, you get 8 gears. And the car doesn't just pretend to have a DCT for the sake of the sound. It actually mimics the feel of having an 8-speed DCT automatic-ish transmission. So what that means is it will actually ramp power up and down. It will cut power if you don't pull the paddle, and it will shift like any other car. And what that means is you can downshift as you're approaching a corner. While you're on the brakes, you get the sound coming in the speakers, and in theory that all actually makes this car better to drive when you're pushing it hard over one of its competitors like the Mustang Mach-E GT. So I think it's a really interesting concept. I'm really excited to get out on the road and try this out because it's really weird, and I normally hate fake piped-in engine sound, but you know, my theory here is if you can do that on a back road and have all that extra sensation that actually helps you drive better, and then turn it all off and put the car back in its totally normal mode, you know, let everything soften up, quiet up, you know, the shocks go back to soft, all that good stuff. If you do that, then maybe this isn't so bad. So let's head over to those back roads as part of our Shenandoah Don't Impress Me Much road rally in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia with a bunch of our fellow car gays out here. Let's talk all about how this thing is to drive.
All right, so driving the Ioniq5 N. First of all, everyone say hello to Nico. He's another one of our members and is my co-pilot because we're doing this live from the Shenandoah rally. So unscripted. You can hear everything flying around in the back. I've got like napkins back there, but this thing's fast.
Yeah, we've got the special sound effects on right now that make it sound even faster.
This is the, so it's got the 3 different drive sound things, and this is like the electric car ones. It's got one that sounds like a Turbo 4, this one, and then one that sounds like a space shuttle or something. They're kind of cool. I don't know. It's apparently to give you a sensation of speed.
Speed and Metro Rail, red line.
It does sound like a subway train. So yeah, okay, it's fast. We've established that, and that's without the N Grin button. I think I've got it in sport mode. I think suspension-wise, it's been feeling good, like composed.
I haven't gotten car sick yet, so that's a positive.
That's good. Love that. I think generally it's just felt very easy to do everything. Like, we've been on some really windy roads, and it's just it's unbothered. And I think the fact, I mean, it's almost 5,000 pounds. So
it's comfortable too. I mean, and that's part of the reason you buy a car like this is it is a family SUV. It's practical, and all these bumpy roads and stuff, like we haven't had any issues at all.
Yeah, it's been good ride. The seats are good. Like, these are the upgraded seats for the N, and granted, we're both built on the more slender side, so if you're not built like us, you may have a bad time. I don't know. Sit before you buy.
Yeah, they're a bit bolstered. It's not too aggressive though.
Yeah, but yeah, this has all felt good. It's easy to do dumb stuff with, and very confidence inspiring. I think the tires give it a lot of grip and give you a lot of that confidence.
And all the safety features too only let you be a certain amount of dumb. Like, I think the brakes have stopped you from rear-ending a few people, which is good, but
I've been driving very carefully, except all the times I've hit the N Grin button and gone like a billion miles an hour. It always seems to think I'm going to hit the car in front of me, but
no, we've never been even close. But it is definitely maybe a little over-aggressive actually with all the
and I've got it all turned down. But either way, steering, I know like you can't feel the steering from over there, but the steering feels good. It's got good feedback. They did change the steering rack on this to be like more direct. And you mentioned the brakes, like they do feel good, and they felt good on all the downhills we were doing earlier, where like I was mentioning, I think it's like blending the regen and the actual brakes pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun going down these mountain roads and watching the instrument cluster, seeing the percentage actually go back up from...
Yeah, we've gained what, like 6 or 7 miles with all the downhill?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, yeah, this has been fun. And then there are the paddles, which we played with a little bit, and maybe I'll... figure out how to do it. We'll do this while we're driving. It's under vehicle, and then drive mode, and then NE shift.
This enhances the pleasure of driving by utilizing virtual shifting to provide the experience of driving a vehicle with an engine and transmission.
So what that means is it gives you effectively 8 gears, and it will actually, like, it changes how the motors deliver power. So it actually cuts power to make it feel like you're hitting a fuel cut or a limiter, because in EV you just don't get that. But if I gun it,
we get the gunshot sound effect basically from. Hopefully that's coming through on the microphone right now.
That's the stupidest thing, and I love it. Like,
it's pretty
so
dumb,
cheesy.
but it's definitely a good party trick, you know. Like, I'm definitely enjoying being the passenger in this car.
Yeah.
All the fun little red accents right now have lit up, I think, in that drive mode.
Yeah, you can link them all in the drive modes. So, yeah, it's the thing I like about this, and because we were talking, I guess you and me and someone else yesterday about like what this competes with, and it's really like the Mustang Mach-E GT, the Kia EV6 GT, which is this platform mate, and that's kind of it for this price point and size and everything and performance. But this, I think, has the most sense of occasion and like all the party tricks and stuff, like you're saying.
Yeah, and I think that's a big reason why you buy an EV. I mean, Tesla has such a big, I don't know, pull in that area with, you know, with like the Christmas party mode, and
yeah,
when you go into plaid mode, right? Doesn't it kind of look like you're in like Spaceballs? Like, it does all these fun things that people who've never probably even experienced an EV before, like me, like find entertaining. So
yeah, it's definitely because I think it's easy for anything to have a whole lot of electric motor torque and do the launch control bit, and like once you do that 5 or 6 times, like, okay, yay, the car's fast, got it.
Right.
So how else do you keep it engaging? And I think it is really engaging, and I'm enjoying driving it. And the dirty secret that, well, now I'm telling the whole world, I've told you and some others, but I don't especially like the Ioniq 5. I know the entire world loves the Ioniq 5. I think it drives really wide, and because it's a bigger car. Like he has a GTI, and I want this to be GTI sized, and it's not.
Yeah, it's funny, in like all the pictures that I've seen, I'd never seen one in person on the road, or maybe I hadn't just in passing, but the proportions make it look like a hatchback. Like, I know this is classified as an SUV, right? And
it's a crossover, I don't know.
Crossover, hatchback, SUV, but the proportions make it look smaller than it is, so I can definitely imagine that, not having driven it.
Yeah, and this is longer than a Hyundai Tucson crossover by a few inches, and it's got like a 118-inch wheelbase, which is longer than my Porsche Cayenne had by 4 inches. Like, this is a big car, but I think for whatever reason, having this as the performance version, it feels like this one drives smaller than the regular Ioniq 5. Okay. So I like this more.
What's the interior like on the other one?
It's generally the same as this. They did have like a sliding center console, which I don't know if they deleted for 2025 on all of them, or just the N gets a different setup, which someone online who knows more is going to correct me in the comments on that. But the interior is otherwise the same, it's just the seats and the steering wheel are different. That would get really old, but it's really fun.
I'm enjoying it. I'm definitely enjoying it.
And it's different too. Okay, so if you go back go to vehicle and then the sounds, and active sound plus, and pick we were in supersonic.
I think,
so go to evolution.
Evolution was fun.
That's the...
Almost like we're in an F1 car or something.
Like an electric F1 car. So this is a little better, I think. You don't get the explosion gunshot noise.
Do we get a sound though? No.
That's just like race car sounds. But yeah, so as we're not going slowly here through these corners, and like, this is legit fun. This is easy to do dumb stuff in.
It's almost like you're playing a video game.
Yeah. And it's been raining the whole time, so we're not like pushing, but yeah, this is easy to drive quickly, which I always love, because some cars really make you work for it. Like, coming out of this, just, there's so much grip. And it's got an electronic limited slip diff on the back axle, so it's one motor per axle. So the back one is still helping with power distribution, left to right.
As you're focused on the road, you have shift lights kind of popping up on the dash.
Yeah, I've got color coming off of the gauge cluster to tell me when to shift, because it will fuel cut, if you will, or electron cut. So, yeah, I get the appeal, and I was really not, I was very curious about this, but, you know, whenever the entire automotive media world says they love something, I'm always skeptical, because I'm like, where'd you get that Kool-Aid from? And sometimes it's really legit, and I think this is one where it is legit, because, I mean, Matt Farah, I don't know if you follow him at all, but he called this the best sports EV he's ever driven.
Really?
Which, I mean, that would go, I think, against things like a Porsche Taycan and you know, some of the more high-end stuff, too. But it's interesting, too, with all this being downhill now, I'm enjoying having the gears to kind of help me limit my speed, too.
Engine braking.
Yeah, and I'm assuming it's regenning like hell when we're doing this. This is fun. There's a little G-meter bouncing around.
Bit of fun and terror.
Oh, it's only a little bit. This is just, it's easy to attack this. These roads are wet. They're on camber, so like they're helping me turn, but yeah, this is phenomenal. Oh, all right, I'm a fan. Okay, so now we're back to dry roads and straight line and all that good stuff, where we've actually got some room to try out this Grin Boost button here. So what happens is when you push this button, whether you're already moving or whether you're moving away from a light, you get all that extra power and torque for about 15 seconds. So I'm gonna go ahead and push it, and it gives me a 10-second timer for how much time I have here. And then from there, all you have to do is put your foot down. It is truly wildly fast. I mean, the car is fast enough on its own, but if you really lay into it here, and especially if you stomp on it and not roll on the throttle, it is just wild. Now, it lets you do it a couple times before it says, hey, you got to give it a second to, you know, let everything cool back off or whatever, because it heats the battery up and heats the motors up. But it is really wild here. I was never gonna do it away from a stoplight as well, but even already on the move, already doing 20, 30, 40 miles an hour, the car is just markedly quicker, and you know, 40 horsepower is nothing to sneeze at. So, and again, if we just hit the button and stand on it, every time I've done this, you can hear the frontal collision warning noises go off, because even if you've got a car way the heck ahead of you, it still thinks you're going to hit them. So kind of amusing. It adds to the fun factor, it adds to the grin factor, as they say, and Grin Boost. You certainly don't need the extra power, but it sure is fun. And that's kind of how I feel, like we were saying in the rest of the driving portion, this is just a fun car. It's got a ton of personality, it's very cheeky, it is really, really enjoyable. You know, the price is the only thing that makes me a little, because it's pushing 70 grand, but again, you know, you're paying for the performance, you're paying for the tech with the batteries and the electric motors and all that. Like, that is all going to come down in price as things get built out, you know, over the next bunch of decades. Right now, you know, it's really hard to get an affordable electric car, especially one that can do performance-y things. So just a fun car, really cool. Glad I got to experience it. Yes, it lives up to all the hype. I definitely agree. So that is it for this review of the 2025 Hyundai Ioniq 5 N. Thank you as always for coming along. Like, share, comment, subscribe right here. Let me know what you think. If you'd buy one, if you hate it, if you think it's terrible, and anywhere in between. Until next time, stay safe, be well. See you again soon.